Hello everybody, my name is Lucy and welcome to Books and Brushes. So today we are doing an August wrap up, and last month in July I read a total of 10 books. Incredible, the best I've ever done I think. This month we didn't reach 10 but we still soared above my average with an amazing count of 6. So I'm very happy with that and I can't wait to discuss all of these books because I have loads of thoughts. So I wanted to talk about each of these books without having to rush and without this video being super long, so I decided to split it up into 2 parts. So what you're watching right now would be part 1, and then I will do 3 books now and then 3 books in the second one, just so it's a bit shorter and easy to digest, and it's what YouTube seems to like, shorter but sweet. And hey, more videos for you, so right, without any further ado, let's get cracking because this first book I cannot wait to talk about. So at the beginning of this month it was my friend's birthday and we went to Southampton and went for dinner and went shopping. We had a great time and I met her up there, so I had a lot of time waiting for trains, being on trains, and the entire evening to read this book. So I read it in a day and oh my god. And that book is All the Things We Never Said by Yasmin Rahman. I think I said that right. Now, this book was incredible. This book was amazing and it touched me in a way a book hasn't been able to do in such a long time. It's heavy, it's emotional, but boy did I love it. So this book is about 3 teenage girls who all are in a very dark place in their lives for very different reasons. And they've all come to a desperate enough place where they want to commit suicide. For whatever reason, they've never been able to pull it off before, and they all find this website which matches you up with other people in your area who also want to commit suicide, to create some kind of suicide pact so that you can all do it together to give each other the courage to go through with it. Now, as you can imagine by that description, this book has trigger warnings for days. This book is very mental health focused. It has trigger warnings from depression, mental health, sexual abuse. The list goes on really. So it's a very intense, emotional and sensitive read. So if any of those things are troublesome for you, it's pretty obvious that this book is going to be very strong in all those areas, so do be careful. So I have a lot of personal affinity with this subject matter and the area of depression. I know, not going into it right now, but let's just say I relate. Our main character Maureen is just so real and it's heartbreaking to read and it's powerful and emotional. I cried waterful rivers of tears during this book. I'm not a massive crier at books, but this one I couldn't. I was bawling my eyes out, but in the best way. This book like reached into my heart and soul and ripped it out, and I'm not mad about it. I love that this book is so real. It's amazing to me how this author has taken such an emotionally charged and intense, sensitive topic and written it the way it is, you know, it's truth. It is what it is, and she's not sugar-coated, she's not dramatised, it's just real. And the truth isn't always nice, the truth isn't easy, but it's the truth, and it's written in such a beautiful manner. I love the morals of this and the fact that friendship and connection really can save you from these dark places. It's not a magical overnight cure, but it's something to fight for, and life is something to fight for. And it's not easy for everyone to do it. And I think if you read this book not really understanding depression, by the end of it, you probably would understand it in a way. Like, you wouldn't, I don't think any people who don't have it would never truly understand it, but you would feel so much more in tune, and you would really, instead of persecuting people for having these thoughts and thinking of them as weak and stupid, you'd understand the torment that it is. And that's why it's such an important story, not only for people who have never had it, but for people who have. So although this is trigger warning central right here, I do recommend this for people who do have mental health issues, just because it's the ultimate you are not alone kind of story. It's the ultimate we all have these problems, some more than others, whether they're in your mind or in the physical form. and it doesn't make you less worthy of having them, and you are not alone, and friendship saves you, and it's this book. I absolutely love this story. It's so ingrained in my heart now. I will never forget this story. I can't wait to reread it. I love it so much. I will never stop gushing. Everyone read it. It's amazing. Why have I never heard of this book? Why is no one talking about this? It is so incredibly powerful in so many ways, and just pick it up. I'm trying to talk about this in a logical, well-reasoned, well-argued way, but I'm struggling because my heart, my chest feels tight just talking about this book, because I feel I just want to cry thinking about it. It's sad, it's happy, it's beautiful, it's tragic, it's amazing, it's all the things, so read it. Before I start gushing even more than I already have, this book is written in a very unusual format, which I found really interesting and worked really well for this story. So it's written from the three perspectives, the three different girls, and each of the writing formats in each POV is very drastically different. And although some people say that could be like a lazy writing device, in here it worked to such a beautiful effect. So our main character Maureen is written in a pretty normal format, your normal first person, except he's got these sections of text here that are kind of the voice inside her head, her depression, vocalised, the chaos as she calls it. And it's such a beautiful way to visually represent that that voice is not hers, that there's another in there that sounds like it's hers, but it's not. It's dark and it's not good, and visually it's used to such a beautiful effect in this story. Sorry if I was out of focus there. Focus on the book. As for Cara, our second POV, she's written in a completely normal first person format, no frills, just completely normal, and I think it suits her. All of these formats kind of suit the characters that they are attached to. And Olivia, probably our most interesting format, and I will show you why. So as you can see, it's written in a very higgledy-piggledy visual representation of the words. So the text is spread out and stretched and written in all sorts of manner of ways. Essentially what the text is doing is it's visually representing what the words actually say. So when she's talking about water spraying, the actual words will spray across the page. If she's talking about something growing larger, the words will be big. Thoughts that are small, and it's really well formatted. Kind of like, you know, a poetry book where the words are visually representing the actual imagery of the poem or something. It's similar to that. It's slightly jarring, it's slightly unusual, but you get so invested in it. It's so easy to breeze through. Whoever designed it thought it through so magnificently well. It just flows just so nicely, and it fits this character really well. And when you read from each of these POVs from these girls, it's really easy to distinguish which one you're reading, not just from the format, but from their voices. This author could have gotten away with not needing these formats, because the voices of the characters are very distinct enough as they are. Each girl is very different, so she doesn't need these formats. She uses them, but to such great, beautiful effect, and it really suits it. And I just can't compliment how well that she's pulled this off. You can tell this author has such a personal affinity with these topics as well. I don't know what else to say to make you love this book. All I can say is it's a new favourite for me, and I will forever love this story. Whew! Alright, let's calm down, Lucy, calm down. See, just thinking about that book gets me all emotional all over again. It's crazy. Alright, the second book I read in August was Forget Me Not by Ellie Terry. Now, Forget Me Not is a story written in poems, so prose, as a lot of people say. It is written as one story, so the entire novel is one fluid story, with each page being a poem. So the poems connect and tell one gigantic story in separate parts. I don't tend to read books in prose like this, because sometimes I just think they're not done well, and if they're not done to a fluid enough standard, I just kind of lose interest in them. I love poetry, but I don't know, I guess it's a pickier thing for me. I'm not really sure. I haven't delved enough into poetry narration. But this book did it so beautifully, and I absolutely loved the story. Again, this book, there's a very personal element to this book, and not for myself, but for a loved one. This is about a girl who lives with their mum and they're constantly moving. Her mum's always got a new boyfriend, and as soon as she dumps him, which is often, they move to the next city. And this girl has never laid down roots, she's never made friends that she can keep. And when they move again, she meets a boy who just so happens to like her and she him. And can she keep this friendship and stay in this city and finally be grounded in one place? The reason why I wanted to read this book very specifically was because the main character, the girl, has Tourette's. Now, like I said, Tourette's is a subject that I have a very personal connection to because a loved one of mine has it, and I just don't feel it's represented ever. How many stories in books and movies can you think of where there's a character with Tourette's? Yep, keep thinking. It's so not common and it's so misunderstood just in general. So I've been on the search for books that contain Tourette's because I think it's such a strange and interesting disorder, and it's something that more people should know about, and it's something that more characters should have. This book dealt with this subject very well. You could tell the author knows what she's talking about with the Tourette's. Like, I could tell that this was very, very true to life. So if you don't know much about Tourette's and you read this, it's pretty accurate. And if you do know about Tourette's, I think you'll find some personal affinity or connection with it, because I do think it's done very well. It's quite heartbreaking to read at points. I do warn you, this girl gets bullied. That's not really a spoiler. So if you have sensitive issues surrounding Tourette's, then probably not. The person I'm thinking of, I don't think they could make it through this book because I don't think they would be able to stomach this content just because they would feel, I just don't think they could. It is a beautiful story and I think it's something that more people should read. The characters are so wholesome and sweet. I think everyone can relate to the girl or the boy in either sense. The boy she ends up falling for has a very rich Asian culture in his family, which I found really fun to read about. That was really nice. I like the characters, from the bullies that you get to understand, to this good character who's doing not the good thing and you understand why. It's written so beautifully. There's so much imagery, and obviously it's a poetry collection. So some of the imagery about the space and the moon and rocks, and the imagery is stunning. And if you love books that have that beautiful wording but aren't overly complicated, easy to read and yet eloquent, this is the one. So as you can imagine, with each page being pretty much a poem, long or short, it flies through very quickly, this story. It was very fast to read, it didn't take me very long. I think I read this one in a day as well. The first two books I read this month I got through in a single day, which is pretty impressive, but with this one you can see why I managed to do that. This story was beautiful, the story was very well written, and this subject matter just needs to be seen, whether it's a main character or focus of the story or not. Like, I want side characters that just have Tourette's. Like, why is it not as mainstream? Why is it just so taboo to talk about? It shouldn't be, and it should be more known. And I will keep searching for books with Tourette's in. I've got 2 currently, and this is one of them, and I'm really glad I read this because it was beautiful. Now we're on to our last book. I did not read this one in a day. However, just like the previous 2 books, it is a good one and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to discuss this one. I've had a good reading month overall, and that is Children of Blood and Bone by Tony Adeyemi. I've been meaning to get to this one and I am not disappointed. I didn't let the hype of this book infect me, and I'm glad, because I just picked it up just expecting it to be good and it ended up being great and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was nice to have a break into fantasy since the previous 2 books were both very emotional, mental health contemporary. So it's nice to have a break from that, although this book, it's still intense, but at least it's a fantasy. So this book is set in the fantasy setting of Orisha, a very African kind of inspired place. So in this world there used to be magi, which were people with magical abilities and white hair. The white hair is just kind of a signifier that they have magic inside them. There is many different clans and types of magic and magi which it goes through, and it's really interesting to see the different types in this world. There is people that control life and death. There is people that control elements, time, light and dark, all sorts of really interesting ones. I quite like the way that the clans were in this book. And then in this world, the king managed to wipe out all the magi in long ago, and now it's just the diviners left. I think they were called the diviners. I can't remember, it was a while ago, and there's so many different words to remember with this story. But I'm going to call them the diviners for now and hope I'm not sounding stupid. So these diviners are basically what magi would have been. It's a magi before their powers kind of unleash. It is the before of a magi. And now that magic has been banished and completely stomped out of Orisha, these diviners, that they would have had magic that they will now never have. The magic is gone, but they are still really, really mistreated. In this world, they are persecuted, they are very low class, and they are constantly abused by the Orisha guards and thrown into the stocks, which is like a really horrible kind of slavery organisation, really. And our main character happens to be a diviner, so her life isn't very easy until she gets the chance to bring magic back and overthrow the Orisha guards and the king, who is oppressing all of these people. And she can bring back power to the diviners so that they can fight for their right to be humans. This book was so good. It was slightly slow to start, but then again, fantasies kind of always are. There's a lot of words you need to grapple, a lot of new kind of fantasy words, but it wasn't too difficult to get into or understand. There was no info dumpy in my opinion. I think everything was very well paced and positioned, and all the information spread out in a nice digestible format. This story, it just got better and better and better. It snowballed, and it was so emotional, so action-packed. The characters are so wonderfully 3D and developed and interesting, and I absolutely love this story. There were parts where I just did not want to put it down, where I just had to know what happened, and I thought it was such a wonderful story. This book I know is very hyped, so I don't want people going into it expecting the earth, but I went into it with good hopes, but I never try and set my hopes too high, and I think it's a good way to go in, because I read this of my own accord, not really thinking about the hype. In fact, I'd forgotten about that until I got to the end and remembered that everyone loved this book so much. I'd forgotten about it. But I just thought this book was so well done, and I love the characters in this story. My four main characters are all so interesting, and the way they all connect and the way their relationships all work, I think it was perfect. There was definitely some twists and turns I didn't expect, some tropes that I absolutely loved and that were done well, which I don't usually think are done well, but I thought they were done well here. My favourite character is probably Amari. I think she is absolutely amazing. I also love her brother Inan. I think his character is so interesting. We have Zeely and we have Zane. I think it's Zane, it's spelled with a T, but I pronounce it Zane in my mind. Again, it's one of those books, a lot of the words you're thinking are probably mispronounced, but at this point, it's like it doesn't matter. Wow, this book is heavy, my arm hurts. This book is full of magic, full of action, full of oppression and fighting it against the man. It's fantasy, it's dystopian, it's got all the things, it's beautifully written, the characters are developed, the relationships are so interesting. I just want to say I love the main love interest of Zeely's. I thought it was done so well. I just absolutely loved how beautifully it progressed, and it felt natural and it felt real and just well done. This is the first in a series, which is kind of annoying because now I want to read all of them and I can't. The next one comes out in December, so I have to wait for that. And if it's a trilogy like I think it's going to be, I'm going to have to wait probably a couple more years for the third one, so that's fun. I wish I could just read them all now because I love this series and I'd love to just continue on, but alas, I shall have to wait for that. This book is very intense, it's very strong, it contains everything. Again, the trigger warnings: oppression, racism, sexual abuse, torture, a lot of things. If you're sensitive in any way, it's gonna be a strong story, so bear that in mind. It was a lovely fantasy. It's probably my favourite fantasy I've read in a long time, and I want to read more. I want to read the rest and I can't, and it's upsetting. Just thoroughly enjoyed the story while I read it, and I really want to reread it, but I won't. But I want to. And that is the first 3 books I read in August. You'll have to wait for the next video to see what the other 3 books were, and I hope to see you there. If you like this video, please give it a like and comment down below which of those 3 do you like the sound of. Have you read any of those 3? I absolutely love having discussions with you guys in the comments. It's one of my absolute favourite things about BookTube and YouTube, and it's my favourite. It's why I do this, because I just love talking to you guys in the comments. And especially with these 3 books, all 3 of those, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot topic-wise. It's quite dense, and there's so much to delve into, and everyone will have new and interesting perspectives and comments and ideas to talk about with these. So come on down in the comments. Let's have a full-on discussion session about these. Which one would you want to read? I want to know all the things, and I will meet you down in the comments. Please like, subscribe and share if you haven't, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!